Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we are live and welcome to Toni Approved. Would you believe me if I told you that musical artists are now the modern day prophets? But that's not a question you get asked every day. But I'm going to give you guys a few reasons as to why I believe this theory to be true. Now remember, this is my personal opinion, so hope you guys agree with it as well. And if you don't, just enjoy the ride and listen. Okay? So first, let's start off with what is a prophet. When I think of the word prophet, I think of biblical times when individuals in the Bible, such as David, Noah, Abraham, Jeremiah, Isaac, these were individuals that were in constant communication with God, and he would use them to spread his message of love, peace, warnings of changing their ways, and sometimes detailing out situations that was to come. Now, I personally am a person that is more spiritual than religious, but I do believe that music is the bridge between heaven and earth. Shout out to my girl, K. Michelle. She's actually the one that tweeted that a couple of years back, and that tweet, always stuck with me. Now, fast forward to modern day prophets, they will still be the same type of people as in biblical times. Individuals who are spiritually connected to some degree and spreading the message of the Most High. And before we get into our modern day prophets, I do want to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson throughout the civil rights movement which took place from 1954 to 1968. And even before then, I feel like during those times, the public speakers were more considered to be the voices of inspiration and the voices of the people. And during that time, some of them too were actually modern day prophets, spreading the message of God in their own way and eventually becoming inspirations for our prophets of today. The magnificent man he was, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is majorly known as a quote-unquote peacemaker from the civil rights movement times, because he always preached the message of nonviolence and loving your enemies. Now, what they don't always teach you in the history classes is that Martin's speeches eventually changed from pushing the whole integration and black people and white people and all type of people coming together to actually us as minorities just coming together on our own, building our own resources and pushing our own selves forward in black culture and black excellence. But the core of his message always remained the same in all of his speeches, before his speeches started to change and afterwards. And the core message is always love and treating others how you want to be treated. The great Malcolm X, even though his views were a little more direct, his core message was still the same of self-love and us as melanated people loving ourselves and really knowing the value of who we are. Because if you truly love yourself and you care about others the way you care about yourself, there's no room for hate and you won't be spreading or practicing hateful acts. Even Medgar Evers, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, he was the first black man to air on TV and radio in Mississippi, and he was the very first state field secretary for the NAACP. His message of violence is never the way was spread all through the world by his wife after he was assassinated. Of course, he was conscious enough to know that violence can oftentimes lead to hate, which is definitely the opposite of love, which is the message of the Lord. Now, when it comes to our modern day prophets, I feel that the biggest way that you can spot a modern day prophet is by listening to the lyrics of the artist. I find that you can find a few more prophets in the rap game than you do with singers, but there are a lot of singer prophets that are out there as well. Remember, a prophet must use their voice to spread the message of God across their platform. So let's start with the example of Mr. Kendrick Lamar and with his song Loyalty featuring Rihanna, for example. Now, when a prophet speaks, he speaks the words of God. So you have to make sure that you're conscious and paying attention enough to hear it, because most of the time the message quickly comes and goes. Now, in the third verse, Kendrick says, anybody you would slide for, anybody you would die for, that's what God for. And for me, I took that as his way of saying, hey, you can be loyal to whoever's in your corner and you can be a stand-up person. But when you get to that feeling of, hey, yeah, I ride for you, I die for you, man, or I die for you, girl, you almost really don't have to do that, because you have to remember, God has already paid the cost for us. There's no one that should be dying for other people. So that way, if we love him and treat others how we want to be treated and make sure we're following his commandments, because he's going to judge us off of our actions and our heart, whoever it is that's gonna die is already going to be taken up. If they were living the proper life that God has instructed us to live, they're already going to be with him in the end. So there's no reason for you to feel like you have to give your life for them. And that was his subtle way of throwing in the message of, don't forget, you guys, God is the one that died for our sins. Let's also take it to another example of a verse from Kendrick. This one actually comes from DJ Khaled's song Holy Key. This song features Big Sean as well. Now in this verse, Kendrick clearly states, I don't wear crosses no more. Yahshua is coming back. Now, for those who do not know, the name Yahshua is believed to be the true way to pronounce God's name by his chosen people, the Israelites. And to be honest, he's only been known as quote unquote Jesus since the first slave ship came over here in 1564, which coincidentally had the exact same name. Now, this is an example that Kendrick is a very conscious artist, and I would definitely consider him one of our musical prophets. But that's something we already knew, right? Now, our dude Chance the Rapper, on his song All We've Got, which is the first song off of his album Coloring Book, he says, and quote, "This for the kids of the kings of all kings," which means his music, or that song in particular, is for the children of God, the King of all kings. And of course, I can't leave out our dude J. Cole, who basically used the outro of his new album KOD, entitled Window Pane, as a way to warn us that God is coming back. And he actually offered a child's opinion on why evil things take place in the world. The kid on the track clearly states that pain and evil things can actually be God's way of teaching us lessons and making us stronger and giving us more things that will connect us closer to him. Because most of the time when we're going through different things, that's the time when we're calling on his name the most. This goes hand in hand with the belief that everything happens for a reason and he won't put more on us than we can bear. Now, when it comes to the singers, of course they be dropping them prophet teas as well. Let's take Miss Solange Knowles for an example, and her album A Seat at the Table. Now throughout her whole album, she has interludes that include conversations with her mom, her dad, but more specifically with the rapper Master P on the topic of Black excellence and becoming the first $1 million independently owned business music company. Throughout her album, she highlights African Americans with the message of empowerment for us and to just remind us how great we are. And Master P says in a very prophetic way that we came to this country as slaves, but we're going to walk out of here as we came to this country as slaves, but we're going out as royalty and able to show that we are truly the chosen ones. We, melanated people, are the chosen ones, referred to as the true children of God, or Yahshua, the children of the King of all kings. Hope I didn't lose you guys, but I definitely just tried to connect all of the dots for you guys. Now, final example is going to be our girls, Miss Chloe and Hailey, the sisters that are signed to Beyonce's label Parkwood. They have a song on their new album, The Kids Are Alright, and the song is called If God Spoke. This particular record, they wrote from the perspective of what would God's answer be when we're praying to him in our prayers. And it's so beautiful because the core message of the record is God's message is love, patience, and trusting that he'll always give you your heart's desire. And once again, will never put more on you than you can bear. Now, of course, there are so many other artists that could be considered, or figureheads that could be considered modern day prophets, but I just wanted to name some of you guys, I just wanted to name for you guys some of the people and some of the songs and some of the lyrics that have definitely stuck out to me. I know some of you guys might also be wondering why I didn't choose to mention any gospel artists. Well, I definitely believe there are some prophets in the gospel field, but the problem with the gospel artists are their gospel audience. The gospel audience are most of the time a little bit more religious than they are spiritual and not loving and accepting of everyone for who they are. They forget that God judges the heart of the person along with their actions. And 9 times out of 10, if a gospel artist was to start saying things that the church didn't agree with or things that they wouldn't consider as quote unquote spiritual, they would stop paying attention to them or they would castrate them out of the music industry. And I just don't think that's appropriate. And that's another reason why I wouldn't use them as an example. And of course, most of the time sexual artists, quote unquote, have a bigger platform than our gospel artists. So their message is able to be spread to a bigger masses, which means that they actually are using their platform, especially because it's bigger, to spread the message of God. That definitely makes them one of our major musical prophets, because they're a bigger influence to the individual and can closely bring them back to the true message of God. So I just wanted to drop that off for you guys, because that's just some shit that was on my mind. And just wanted to let you guys know the next time you're listening to a song on the radio, on the phone, and it's uplifting or making you feel good in any type of way, take a close listen to the lyrics, because you just might be listening to one of the many Toni Approved musical prophets there are in the music industry. I love thinking out of the box, you guys. I thought this was such a cool idea, and I definitely wanted to share it with all of you guys. Thank you guys for checking out Toni Approved. My name is Tony, and I'll check in with you later.